This is America on the Road, named Best Radio Show by the International Automotive Media Conference, and now in its 27th year on the air. Thanks for being with us as we bring you the latest automotive information from around the world. The first journalists have driven the production versions of the 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning, and we were among them. We'll tell you about this revolutionary vehicle coming up. And if the record fuel prices have gotten your attention, we have 5 common sense tips that can help you save gas. So stay tuned for that later in the show. America on the Road is brought to you by Mercury Insurance and drivingtoday.com. If you're looking to save some money, you should switch to Mercury for your auto and home insurance. Californians save an average of $670 with Mercury, so imagine how much you could save. Get a quote today at drivingtoday.com/auto insurance. That's drivingtoday.com/auto-insurance. I think you need that hyphen in there. I'm Jack Nerad. With me is co-host Chris Teague. Chris lives at one end of the country. I live at the other end of the country. Each week we get together to talk about cars, car industry, stuff related to cars. And Chris, you were under the weather a week or so ago, and I'm hoping that you've recovered.
I have recovered, and just in time, Jack. It's going to be almost 80 here on Friday, so we're very much heading towards summer. But I'm expanding my driveway, so I'll have more room to park more cars here. So hopefully that'll allow me to test more without bothering my wife and everyone else involved.
That's a beautiful thing. All right, not bothering your wife is key. I mean, that is it's absolutely the key to a happy life is not bother your wife. So, that even rhymes. Who knew? What vehicle will you be telling us about this week?
I'm going to be talking about the Ford Bronco Sport. I had the Outer Banks model with the 3-cylinder engine. It's a really interesting SUV that I'm excited to tell you about.
And we're going to be all Ford for the road test because I'll be telling you about the Ford F-150 Lightning, the battery electric pickup truck that I drove at an event around San Antonio, Texas. I drove the vehicle both on roads and on some very challenging off-road courses as well. I even got to tow a big horse trailer. So I'll tell you about that. We have a terrific guest for you as well. Our guest is Justin Yoshizawa. He is the Director of Product Management at Mercury Insurance, and they've just launched Mercury Go. That's a usage-based auto insurance plan, and it can probably save you a lot of money. So we'll have an in-depth discussion with him about that, with him about saving you some money is what that's all about, really. But before we do that, we'll bring you some of the most important auto-related news from around the world, including the major automaker that is near the edge of running out of federal tax credits for its buyers. So stay with us for that. With Chris Teague, this is Jack Nerad with you, and we're so glad you're with us on America on the Road. Stay with us, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad with you, and we're so glad you're with us. It is news time, and interesting news we have for you this week, including the major manufacturer that is about to run out of federal EV tax credits for its buyers. And it's important one and not necessarily intuitive. The manufacturer is Toyota, and you don't naturally think of Toyota when you think of EVs, but they have sold a lot of plug-in hybrids, and that also counts for this. They've sold some EVs over time, of course, but they are closing in on that 200,000 limit for buyers to get the federal tax credits. So that's liable to run out quickly, and it's something that I think if you're interested in a lot of those vehicles, those plug-in hybrids from Toyota, and I think, Chris, you like them as I do, it's time to pay attention and run out and buy one. What do you think?
I agree. And, it's interesting because Toyota's first full EV is coming out in just a very little bit here, the BZ4X. And so that's also going to be impacted by this tax credit as it steps down. So once they run out of the initial credits, they're able to offer a lower credit, which is a half of the original amount, followed by a quarter, depending on the timing. So it'll be interesting to see what that does for them. I guess, for Toyota, it's a good problem to have, but for buyers, it could be a little frustrating if you're looking to jump into a new EV or PHEV.
Yeah, I don't even think it's good for Toyota because certainly the manufacturers, and this is not confined to Toyota, I think all the manufacturers that can offer these tax credits or the ability for consumers to get these tax credits are kind of leveraging that. They're using it essentially as an incentive that they might otherwise have to pay. And those that the manufacturers that have run out of these tax credits, Tesla and General Motors, have had to kind of suck that up and go, okay, maybe we have to offer the buyers something like the $7,500 that the federal government would offer competitive buyers or buyers of competitive products. So it's an interesting issue for Toyota, as you say, because they're about to get heavy into EVs. Of course, they've had some full EVs back in the deep, dark past, but I think that would even predated this tax credit stuff. So I think virtually all of their tax credit eligible vehicles have been plug-in hybrids.
Yeah, as you say, the automakers specifically, not necessarily Tesla and General Motors, but they've used this tax credit as a big marketing push, because you sometimes, when the EVs first started coming out, you would see they would list the sales price and they would list the after rebate or after tax credit price. So they're not able to do that anymore. And here in Maine, some states, I'm sure California does, Maine offers its own tax credits, but they only do so on cheaper models. So like the Model 3, when it was available here, you can only get it for cheaper models and so on. So I will be interested to see how automakers, not just Toyota, go about marketing and then also pricing once these credits run out, if they're, going to do anything else with it.
I think Tesla did adjust their pricing based on this, and I think all the manufacturers have to look at that. And I think that maybe been one of the issues recently with Chevrolet Bolt. Of course, they've had some other issues, including battery fires or battery recalls that they had. So, but things change, and money talks, right? I mean, if you look to get $7,500, or then that goes away, that makes a big difference in a lot of people's budgets. It certainly would make a big difference in our household budget here.
Yeah, same here.
Well, here's an interesting development. I think you know a lot about this too, Chris. I think you've written about this. It's the 2023 Honda Odyssey Sport Trim, maybe a sport trim on a minivan, even a very popular minivan, and a minivan that has nice driving modes to it. Isn't necessarily intuitive. What can you tell us about this vehicle?
Yeah, it's basically a trim level of it is the trim level of the 2023 Honda Odyssey. It slots in right in the middle of the lineup, and it gets dark black, 19-inch wheels, darkened exterior trim, black leather interior with red stitching. But performance-wise, so you hear the name Sport and you think maybe it's going to be, an aggressive or quick minivan, but a powertrain is still the same as the standard Odyssey. It's a V6 engine, 280 horsepower, the same 10-speed transmission, same front-wheel drive. But the Odyssey is so much more than that. So, I think that Honda did a good job here, Jack, and I'll get your opinion that I think they're following the Kia mold, where Kia figured out that buyers really want to buy a minivan that doesn't look like a minivan. So Honda's kind of stepping up the aggressive styling and making this look a little bit more muscular and less sort of frumpy. Maybe they'll attract some buyers that way. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, it's nice that they kind of carry this trend of blackout even into the interior of the vehicle. It has black leather interior. It has red contrast stitching. That spells sport right there. The car gets a lot faster when it has red contrast stitching. And then it has black all around. I'm wondering, Chris, what's your reaction to these vehicles? Or how do you think this is going to age? This seems to be the thing right now, is to do these blackout treatments, and you see it on all kinds of vehicles, not just the Honda Odyssey. I wonder how this is going to wear over time.
Yeah, I question that too. I think a lot of this is in response to the aftermarket. Buyers have been picking up black wheels and tinting windows and adding, black plastic pieces to the outside of their vehicles forever. But it's also a response to the fact that everybody loves buying SUVs, and they typically have the, as I said, more muscular styling. But for me, I think it looks good now. How's it going to look in 5, 6, 7 years when everything is electric and, who knows? But I think it looks okay now.
Yeah,
I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah, it looks okay now, and we'll see how it looks in 3 to 5 years, and maybe we don't care at that point. Well, we promised you some gas-saving tips because fuel is, if not at record prices, just about at record prices. It's well over $4 per gallon nationally. Fuel prices in Southern California, where I live, are well over $6 a gallon now. Locally, it's just kind of blowing one's mind about this. There's various reactions to this. Some people are buying electric vehicles so they don't have to worry about fuel prices. At least they don't think they do. There are fuel prices involved in electricity too, but it's not transparent to them. Some are downsizing their vehicles. And I think the most logical approach is to find simple, inexpensive ways to save gas. And so here are 5 of them that I've put together, one of which, and I think this is number one big time, and it's free. It's not just inexpensive, it's totally free, is tire inflation pressure. Most people are driving around with at least one tire that is not at proper inflation pressure, probably low, and that's costing you in fuel economy. So if you just bring your tires and keep your tires at the proper inflation pressure, you're going to save some gas. It's so simple to do, absolutely free. Just run out and do it. Here's another one, and I want your comment on this one, Chris, because I think it might apply to the Teague family a little bit. And this is ditching unnecessary weight. You know, a lot of people carry a bunch of stuff around with them in their cars. You and I don't necessarily have personal cars that we drive all the time, but our family cars, maybe they're carrying a bunch of stuff, who knows what, golf clubs, bottled water, hand tool, a bunch of things might be in the car. And every bit of weight you're carrying is costing you in fuel economy. So it's okay to carry this stuff around if you're going to use it frequently, but just to drive around year in, year out with this stuff, it's costing you money. What's your take on that, Chris?
I agree. You know, we bought a larger vehicle last year. We bought an XC90 and then, cleaned it out a few months later, and we had accumulated a beach chair and, 3 months worth of Goodwill donations and all sorts of other things. And, as you say, it's just added weight. So you're dragging it around. You're not getting any benefit from it because you're just transporting things that you're not using on a daily basis. So I try to clean out the car at least once a month of all the extraneous junk that ends up in there, having kids and carrying stuff around.
Yeah, makes good sense. Number 3 on the list is regular maintenance. Do the maintenance that is required of the car. Change the oil. Change the air filter, too. I mean, that will help you significantly. And number 4 is improving your driving techniques. Now, this is maybe a difficult one for you and me, Chris, because we probably like to go a little faster than we need to and like to accelerate more swiftly than maybe is good for fuel economy. But if you don't do jackrabbit starts, if you're not heavy and hard on the brakes, that will certainly save you in fuel economy. And then the final tip is think before you drive. Can you combine errands, for example? I know you do a lot of errands. You do a lot of school pickups with your children. Is this something you do, Chris?
It is, and it's interesting because we moved last year. We're now closer to everything. So my daily commute is like less than 10 miles. So I try to, combine grocery trips and pick the dog up and do everything all at once so we can avoid, stopping and starting as many times as possible. But these are all very good tips, especially the changing your driving habits. I think driving smoothly and carefully is one of the best things you can do to make sure you save some fuel.
Experts say as much as 30% or so. That's a lot of money, especially with $5 a gallon gas in a lot of places these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, when we come back, we'll be doing some road tests. So we have an all-Ford road test segment coming up for you with the Ford Bronco Sport that Chris Teague was driving, and I was driving the all-new Ford F-150 Lightning, first drive of that for a lot of people. So stay with us for that. We'll be right back right here on America on the Road. Welcome back to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad back with you for road test time. And it is an all-Ford road test segment this week. Chris, you were driving the Ford Bronco Sport. Fun little vehicle carrying the Bronco name. I was driving the Ford F-150 Lightning, and we'll get to that in a minute. But tell us all about the Bronco Sport.
It is an interesting SUV, Jack, and we talked about the first model that I drove last year, and I think you drove one around the same time. And just as an indication of how popular these vehicles have become, we've all, or a lot of us have heard of the Jeep Wave. So if you're in a Jeep Wrangler, you get people, they stick up the 2 fingers and wave at you on the steering wheel when you drive by. I actually had a couple of people wave at me, so I guess the Bronco Sport wave is now a thing. I had no idea until a few weeks ago when I drove the vehicle. But in any case, I was testing the Outer Banks model. This is the second highest trim out of 4 that's offered for the Bronco Sport. The base model starts at around $30,000. The top Badlands trim comes in just under $40,000. My test vehicle came in at $35,495 after a few options. I think that I had a little bit of skepticism about the way Ford did the trim levels for these vehicles to start. It's such a departure from the standard like S, SE, SEL, all the things that, everybody else does. But the more I was thinking about this, and I'll get your opinion on it, Jack, I think I really enjoy the way they've packaged these trims on the Bronco and the Bronco Sport. in that you kind of get the name and then you get a feel for what you're going to get into. So the Outer Banks model is sort of the more mainstream, not so hardcore off-roader of both. And they've just done a good job packaging with it. What do you think about the trim levels and how they're set up?
I think it's inventive, and I agree with you. It does give you a sense of what that vehicle will be like, at least a little bit. And they do make sense once you understand what the vehicle is about. Like the Outer Banks, I think, is a more luxurious kind of easy driving vehicle versus some of the others, or something with the Sasquatch package or the Badlands or something like that, right?
Yes, exactly. So Ford offers two powertrains in the vehicle. There's an inline 3-cylinder engine and an inline 4-cylinder engine. I tested the inline 3-cylinder. Last year I drove the 4-cylinder, and I was very surprised at how well such a small engine performs in this SUV. So it's a turbocharged 1.5 liter inline 3. It makes 181 horsepower and 190 pound-feet of torque. Very strong numbers for a 3-cylinder engine. It's paired with all-wheel drive and an 8-speed automatic transmission. This vehicle gets the GOAT modes, the same that the big Bronco does. So this is the goes over any type of terrain driving modes. The model I tested had a normal mode, an eco mode, sport, slippery, and sand. If you step up to the larger 4-cylinder engine, that powertrain comes with a few more. You get a mud mode, sand mode, and then a rock crawling mode with that one. But again, that comes with an 8-speed automatic as well. And this engine is, you look at it and you see 3-cylinder and you think, man, this is probably not going to be the most powerful or not most responsive, but it vibrates a little bit more than a 4-cylinder. It's a little bit buzzier than a 4-cylinder engine, but Ford does a really good job with this engine. It matches well with the Bronco Sport. The vehicle doesn't feel powered at most points in time. Accelerating and passing on the highway is just fine. And Jack, have you driven the 3-cylinder equipped Ford Escape?
I have. I was on the launch and I drove it at some length. And, I think to a lot of people, the 3-cylinder just sounds weird, right? They're just not used to a 3-cylinder engine. But actually, I think from an engineering point of view, it might be smoother in terms of the up and down, back and forth piston forces than a 4-cylinder, which has some inherent buzziness to it. So there's really nothing at all wrong with a 3-cylinder engine. It makes a lot of sense, and I think it works really well in this application.
I agree. And so inside this vehicle, we've got an 8-inch touchscreen. It runs Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And Ford did a really good job with the safety equipment in the vehicle. So Ford Copilot 360 is standard, and Ford Copilot Assist Plus is optional. So standard, you get automatic high beam headlights, blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, pre-collision automatic emergency braking, rear view camera. And then you can add on navigation, adaptive cruise control with stop and go, and so on. So I've enjoyed Ford's technology offerings. I think that Sync 4, which is the newest version of the software, is a little bit better than Sync 3, which is the version that comes in the Bronco Sport, but it's still one of the most intuitive and colorful infotainment systems on the market. You're never more than a few taps away from what you need to do. And overall, I really enjoy Sync as a tech nerd that I am. I think they've done a really good job. The test vehicle I had came with a B&O sound system with 10 speakers and a subwoofer, so that's an upgrade. And the interior is very spacious with plenty of room in the back seat for 2 car seats, 2 kids, and a dog. So, Jack, I think that this vehicle, despite not being the quote-unquote real Bronco, is more than capable enough. It's comfortable, and it's plenty spacious for family, especially if you are using it to transport a couple of kids and, like I said, a dog. Everybody fits just fine.
I think it's a home run. I think both the Broncos are home runs. I'm seeing a ton of them around here in Southern California. I hadn't seen them until about 2 or 3 months ago, and I think maybe that was production issues. But now they're coming thick and fast, and I think it's a really good vehicle and a good value. So I think it's been a home run for Ford so far. And speaking of which, here's a really important vehicle for Ford that I'm about to talk about. It is the F-150 Lightning, their all-electric pickup truck. And this is a big deal for Ford Motor Company. Of course, the F-150 is essentially the Ford franchise. This is the big moneymaker for Ford Motor Company. It's been the best-selling pickup truck for 45 years straight. So that's important. And when they are introducing an electric version in the face of other electric pickup trucks, they want to get it right. So very important vehicle for them. And I can say right off the top, I think they really did get it right. I think this is a remarkable vehicle, one of the most remarkable vehicles I've ever driven, to tell you the truth. It is fast, and it's easy maybe to look at how quickly the F-150 can accelerate. It goes from 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds when it has the extended range battery, and that's just pretty amazing. But that's not really what people are looking to pickup trucks for, is quick acceleration, sports car-like acceleration, although it's got that. It's the utility, and the utility is there all over the place. One of the things this vehicle will do, because of its giant battery capacity, is it can power a home for up to 3 days. In fact, the Ford engineers tell me, depending on what you're running, it might be up to 10 days using the storage, the electricity stored in the battery pack in the F-150. It can reverse pretty simply into your home electrical system, which is wild. It's just something you don't consider. And we have some brownouts here in Southern California that might be useful for us. I wonder, do you run into electricity problems now and then in Maine, Chris?
We do in the fall, right when the ground gets soft and the wind starts blowing. We have a lot of trees down. We had a 5 or 6 day power outage just a few years ago, so I could see this coming in handy for us.
Yeah. Pretty cool stuff. Well, I want to dive into the driving experience because that's the important thing that we had not been able to do with this vehicle up till now. And we got a chance to drive it both on-road, do some towing with it, and drive it off-road. And so let me report on that. On the road, it is super smooth, incredibly quiet. You don't even hear barely tire noise, a little bit of wind noise, and you can be going exceptionally fast in this thing and not realize how fast you're going. And then some models are Blue Cruise capable. Blue Cruise is a hands-off the steering wheel driving system that enables that on certain roads that are already mapped. I think there's 130,000 miles of roadway where it's appropriate, and we got a chance to do that. It is spooky, I'll tell you, to have your hands off the wheel, be going at a speed you've set, say 70, 75 miles an hour, and be going around corners and having people pass you and doing all those things and just having the vehicle steer itself. But it was a champ doing that. You talked a bit about Sync. This has the Sync 4 infotainment interface, so that is terrific. So all in all, and a giant screen in front of you, depending on the class of vehicle or the trim level. So that's great. I also got a chance to do some on-road towing with the thing. I towed a 5,000-pound horse trailer, sans horses. We didn't have the Kentucky Derby winner long shot in it, but we did have the horse trailer behind us. And I'll tell you, I've towed before. I don't do a ton of towing, though, so I would say still a novice at this. But this felt as if there were essentially barely anything behind the vehicle. Only in very rare occasions did you feel the fact that you had this 5,000 pounds behind you. Pulled strong, of course, you have maximum torque from about 0 RPM, so that's terrific stuff. How about you and towing? Do you do any towing, Chris?
In a previous life, I did. I don't have many opportunities to do it now, but I can see how an electric truck would be an excellent tool to do the job.
Absolutely, and it turned out to be that way. And one of the things the vehicle does is it figures out how big the trailer is, how big the load is, and helps you figure out how much that will affect your range and how much range you need, and when you need to replenish your batteries. It's all pretty smart that way. So I think that's terrific. Let me talk about off-road too. A big advantage there is the amount of torque this vehicle has, which is a lot. You can get a locking rear differential, which is very useful off-road, and we put this to use. It was a pretty challenging off-road course, and I've been on a lot of them recently that we took in the F-150. It climbs and descends with absolute ease. It will ford 2-foot water. We did that, so it did some river fording and through some water barriers and stuff like that. It has a forward-facing camera that helps when you get to the top of a rise and want to see what's over there and see nothing but sky out your windshield. So all of that was terrific. I think it's a very good off-road vehicle with tons of capability. So Big time payload capability, more than 2,000 pounds, 2,200 pounds in some iterations. It'll tow as much as 10,000 pounds with a trailer tow package. It has Blue Cruise. It has a thing, onboard scale, so you can figure out what your payload is and all that. It's just stuffed with tech, more tech than I can talk about in the segment. But you can tell, Chris, I'm gushing about this vehicle. I think the Ford Lightning is an absolute home run. And I'm sorry to go on about this, but I just think they've done a remarkable job with this vehicle.
No, I totally agree. And I guess the only question now is if Ford can make enough of them. They've got a couple 100,000 reservations, and they're going to be pumping these things out left and right. So hopefully they can keep up with it.
I think this is going to be a huge hit for Ford Motor Company. It's going to get some people in electric vehicles that never considered an electric before. And I think it's, in a lot of ways, a landmark vehicle. So that is a great thing from Ford Motor Company. When we come back, we will have an interview with Justin Yoshizawa of Mercury Insurance talking about a breakthrough in auto insurance. So stay with us for that. With Chris Teague, this is Jack Nerad with you, and thanks so much for being with us right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road. Jack Nerad with you. We have a terrific guest for you. Justin Yoshizawa is Director of Product Management at Mercury Insurance. We all insure our cars. It's something we have to do. We're wise to do it. And I think we're always looking for new ways to go about doing that, to maybe save some money in insuring our cars. And I have the absolute expert on that in Justin Yoshizawa to talk about that. Number one, thanks so much for being with us, Justin.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Jack. I always appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast and radio and like talk about, insurance and how we can save customers money.
It's an important thing. I mean, virtually everybody who drives has insurance, should have insurance. It's important that they have the right insurance and really that they understand what insurance is about, because insurance is really designed to protect them. That's what we're all about when we insure things. So, but tell us about this new initiative you put together at Mercury Insurance, because it's pretty exciting stuff and an interesting way to save money.
Yeah, for sure. So it's called Mercury Go, and it's our usage-based insurance app. So if you think about auto insurance, the traditional way of pricing auto insurance, it's based on variables like your driving record. So your tickets and accidents that you've gotten, your age, where you live, the type of vehicle you drive, a lot of variables like that. Mercury Go is kind of this newer way of doing pricing, and it's usage-based insurance based on how you drive. It started with kind of these onboard devices, right, where you would plug them into your car. It's a USB device that gets plugged into your car, and then it tracks your driving. But Mercury Insurance's new app, Mercury Go, is an app that's actually on your phone. So it's not any hardware that the customer has to plug into their vehicle. It's an app that's on the phone. It's on something that everyone carries with them in their pocket or their purse every day, so they don't have to take something else along with them when they're driving their car. And the idea behind it is, it's tracking kind of how they drive, right? So if they're speeding, if they have hard braking, or the advantage to it is it's on the phone, so we can see if they're actually using their phone while driving. And all of this stuff goes into a model and allows us to provide a discount to a customer based on how they're driving. So the safer you drive, the higher discount that you're going to get.
Right. I mean, before you had this ability to really track what individuals are doing, you kind of had to profile them, right? You had to figure out who they were, what they were like, what other people they were like, and then put them into a risk pool that was of people like them. Now, people can really affect their own insurance rates directly by how they drive, right?
Exactly. I mean, really what we were trying to do is use historical data based on those attributes, like I talked about before, and really try to predict what the driving behavior and the loss experience of those customers are with this app, I mean, you can they're able to tell us basically exactly how they're driving, and we can price more accurately based on that.
Which makes all the sense in the world. And like I say, you can, by your own behavior, you can save yourself some money by driving properly. Who do you think it really benefits the most, Justin?
I mean, I think it benefits anyone. I mean, any driver that is conscious of making sure that they're driving safely on the road. I mean, it's an app that provides tips along the way. So it's not just something where it's going to give you a score and tell you how you're doing. It's going to provide tips to tell you like, here's something that you can improve on. So as long as the drivers are looking at kind of, their scores and their trips and seeing the tips that are coming out of the app, it can help everyone become a safe driver. I think it's most especially helpful for families and that have teen drivers as well, because we have this family sharing feature that kind of allows family members to see each other's trips. It allows parents to kind of look at kind of their teen drivers' trips as well and see how they're driving. So
right, and maybe do some coaching based on that, right? And
for sure,
you never have any visibility. When I had teen drivers, and now my teens are in their 20s, and I find it really difficult to monitor them, but I used to want to drive around with them, sitting in the passenger seat just to see how they drive.
Right.
And, that wasn't nearly as valuable as what you provide here.
Yeah, for sure. And even, I mean, if you're sitting in the car, they're going to drive a lot more safely than they probably would if you weren't there, right? So, yeah, I mean, this allows you to kind of see how they're driving and, like you said, provide coaching and tips, based on how they're driving and make them a better driver overall.
What are some of the things that you can find out? It strikes me probably hard braking, jackrabbit starts, those kind of things you can track and then do some coaching on, I imagine.
Yeah, so I mean that's what the app provides tips on is how often they are hard braking, excessive speeding, acceleration, and then what I mentioned before around kind of the phone aspect of it. These onboard devices that were used before in usage-based insurance, they were able to capture a lot of those things in terms of how the car is moving. But the app on the phone allows us to capture components like how often the driver is picking up their phone, how often they're navigating maps or text messaging during their drive, how often they're just picking up the phone, and that plays a role into how safe they're driving as well. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons for kind of increases in frequency as cell phones have become more popular. I mean, you drive down the road and look over at the next car. A lot of times you'll see somebody text messaging, right? And
it's frightening because text messaging is so dangerous and so distracting. Well, sure. I think the other thing that's interesting about this is it tracks it for the driver as opposed to for the vehicle. And that makes a lot of sense all the way around. I mean, in multi-car households, I mean, even when you're renting a car and driving on vacation, it could probably track your behavior. So I think that's an interesting facet of this.
Yeah, for sure. And that was one of the downsides of kind of these onboard devices that were used before for usage-based insurance. You weren't able to tell who was driving the car. This one is, it's allowing us to see the individual's driving behavior, whether or not they're driving their car or somebody else's, or like you said, on vacation and driving a rental car. So we're able to kind of have that more individualized driving score for our customers.
Talk about privacy, will you? A lot of people have concerns about their privacy, although they're giving up a lot of data, I think, maybe unbeknownst to them on their phones and other devices. Talk about that and how that Mercury Go deals with that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing with any app on your phone. There's a lot of data that is being provided, but for us, we definitely maintain strict guidelines, and we definitely follow best practices to keep the driving data safe and secure. We're not sharing it with any other third party except to just help with the servicing of the policy. So, and if the customer feels uncomfortable or wants to unenroll at any point, they have the ability to. If there's specific questions, we can answer those around privacy, but we do our best to keep the data secure, not share it with anyone.
Yeah, is there any other information that you're gathering and taking a look at?
That's largely it's basically the movement of the phone, right? And how fast it's accelerating, how hard it's braking, where it's at, right? So in terms of the mileage and stuff that's being driven, in terms of the trips, where you're going, obviously we need all that to kind of figure out location and all that stuff. In terms of it's basically all location based and how the phone is moving. That is the majority of the information that we're collecting and analyzing.
And location, of course, has something to do with your insurance rates typically too, doesn't it? Because different areas have different kind of loss rates and that kind of
It does. And usually traditional insurance pricing is based on your zip code or where you live. And the assumption is that you're driving around a lot in that area. With this specific usage-based insurance tool, though, we can see the trips that you're actually driving. So you can see like where the customer's driving. Are they driving mainly on the freeway? Are they driving a lot on surface streets? Are they taking longer trips? Right, and how much they're driving. So it does provide us a lot more information to help better price the risk.
So having this on your phone, and that's such a terrific idea. I'm so excited about that. How can insurance customers go about lowering their rates when they use this?
For our program, the way that it works is so you get it up to a 10% discount just for participating. So just for signing up for it on their initial term for the policy, they get up to a 10% participation discount. And then the way it works is after about 90 days, we'll have enough data of driving activity and trips to be able to calculate a rate for that. So an even higher discount. So you have the participation discount, and then you get a driving discount on top of that, dependent on how you're driving. So as we said, if you're a real safe driver, you don't have a lot of hard braking, you're doing a lot of distracted driving and picking up your phone, you're not speeding a ton, then you can save up to an additional 40% on your policy, which is huge, right? I mean, you're talking overall having that 10% participation discount and then the 40% driving discount on top of that. It's huge in terms of providing customers low rates. And that's what we really want to do with this is reward the customers that are driving safely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes so much sense. And before you kind of just had to estimate how people were going to do this thing and what their driving was like. But now you're able to see on practically a micro scale, a person-to-person scale, what's happening with them. And that's what allows you, I think, to give discounts, right? You're just tracking real behavior in real time.
Yep, for sure. I mean, it was more assumption based, and like we said before, is based on historical data of certain segments and how they've performed historically. And now, like I said, you can reward these individualized customers based on how they're driving, and they can see the immediate feedback and driving tips and realize the discounts and the lower premiums as a result.
I know you've launching this state by state. You've launched in several states now. Why don't you tell us, give us an indication of where Mercury Go is going to be available, or is available now and will be available in the future?
Currently, Mercury Insurance writes auto insurance in 11 states right now. We've launched it in 7 so far. So Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Georgia, Arizona, Illinois, and New Jersey are the 7 states that we've launched it in so far. The next ones that are coming up are Virginia and Nevada. And then, the other states will vary based on kind of our rollout schedule, the regulation in the market there. But yeah, Texas was the first state that we launched back last year, and we've seen a lot of success with it. So we've begun to roll it out across all of our states.
Do you expect to gain customers by having the Mercury Go?
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing too, is with these additional discounts that we're able to provide, right? We can give that cheaper rate. So hopefully we're gaining more customers as a result of it. People that are looking for a different insurance solution, understanding of the fact where if they're immediately rewarded with a lower rate if they do drive safe. I mean, that's really kind of the customer that we're looking for and looking to provide that lower rate for is, one that is going to drive safe, can show that they're driving safe and want to get rewarded for it. So yes, we are gaining more business as a result of rolling this program out.
And Justin, how can our listeners get additional information, sign up for this? It sounds like a terrific opportunity.
So there's multiple ways that they can do it. They can come to the Mercury Insurance website, look to buy a policy there, or contact their nearest Mercury independent agent and get more information. So yeah, there's multiple ways to do that, but however they choose to, they can come to our website or go talk to their agent to look to get a policy.
Anything more that listeners should know about this, Justin?
Last thing I'll say is, a lot of insurance companies have different programs like this and stuff. Ours is a little bit unique in the sense that there's no downside for the customer in it. There's other companies that will kind of surcharge if the driving behavior isn't there. At this point for us, we're not, we're just providing the discount. So even if you're the worst driver and, hard braking all the time, on your phone the whole time and speeding, like the lowest you can get is a 0%, right? So we just won't give you that additional discount. So it's really trying to encourage people to sign up. It's a no-lose situation for the customers to try it and sign up for it. It should be a win-win for everyone here.
Absolutely. It sounds like a total no-brainer. Well, Justin Yoshizawa, Director of Product Management, Mercury Insurance, thanks for sharing this with us. Really cool stuff. And we hope to talk to you soon. Thanks for being with us on America on the Road.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it.
And stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back right here on America on the Road. Welcome back to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack D. Red with you. And it's question and answer time. We love to take your listener questions. And our listeners ask really intelligent questions. So we love to try to answer them for them. And Chris, I think you have a question for us in this segment, don't you?
I do, and I think it's going to be a tough one. At least it would be for me. This question comes to us from William in Des Moines, Iowa. William says that he heard us talking about the fuel process that turns CO2 from the air into fuel a couple of weeks ago, and he wants to know, isn't that the same thing that plants do? What about ethanol? Is this something that could be turned into a carbon neutral fuel source?
I think William has something here, at least something that needs to be investigated, right? Because when we described that process, and I think might have even been in last week's show, about taking carbon dioxide from the air, having a plant that does that, and then reacting that carbon dioxide with hydrogen that's derived from water, and then turning the result into a hydrocarbon. Well, essentially, that is what plants do. That's what trees do. That's what, any kind of growing plant pretty much does, is they're taking carbon dioxide from the air and then they create hydrocarbons. Their bodies are essentially hydrocarbons. So maybe some investigation should be made to look at ethanol from this point of view. And I'm not saying this is the way to go, because certainly energy goes into growing crop. But indeed, I think those plants are taking carbon dioxide from the air. And so if that's part of the issue, well, maybe that's something that can be done even more naturally than with this process that we talked about last week. And I think that's our show for this week. It's so great to have Chris Teague with us as our co-host. Thanks for being with us, Chris.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be back after being sick. And I'll say that if everyone likes what they heard and would like to listen more, please head to sportsmapradio.com. You can find us on the Saturday morning schedule. There you can find our Apple Music podcast. I believe it's just Apple podcast, as well as a formatted radio version of the podcast to listen on the go.
Our profound thanks to the SportsMap Radio Network stations for carrying America on the Road. And most of all, thanks to you for listening to America on the Road. You're the reason we do what we do. And thanks so much for being with us. We look forward to having you join us again next week for another edition of America on the Road. America on the Road is brought to you by Mercury Insurance and DrivingToday.com. If you're looking to save some money, you should switch to Mercury for your auto and home insurance. Californians save an average of $670 with Mercury, so imagine how much you could save. Get a quote today at DrivingToday.com/auto insurance. That's DrivingToday.com/auto-insurance. And if you're looking to buy a new car, a used car, just care about cars, come and visit DrivingToday.com. DrivingToday.com is the official automotive website of America on the Road.